I came across, just came up in my feed somewhere along the line. There's a thing called where they actually measure happiness, different countries' happiness around the world, and apparently there's a deep plummet in happiness. There is an epidemic of unhappiness. Any of you been caught by that, or you are inoculated against unhappiness? Or you're not game? It's not surprising to someone who has studied spiritual text and spiritual truths. Spiritual life actually is all about happiness. You know, sometimes when people think of spiritual life, they think of something opposite to material life, for a start. It's got to be something different than material life. And it's got to be something serious, right? It's got to be deep, profound, serious. These are not wrong. But it's almost like we have to give up the world in that sense, which includes things like relationships, fun, joy, happiness, to become serious about, advancing spiritually. But this is not the case. In fact, spiritual life is all about finding that highest happiness. That's actually what spiritual life is. The pursuance of the spiritual quest is to find that happiness, that joy, that pleasure, which is not temporary, which is not impermanent, and which is fully satisfying. So I worked out, and actually I didn't work it out, I Googled it. How many minutes are there in a day? Anyone know? I actually wrote it down in case I forgot. 1,440 minutes in a day. 1,440 minutes in one day. That's quite a lot. If we were to be a bit introspective, and actually, if we could objectively keep a journal. You know how many people could kind of say it's good to journal. You can kind of learn things about your life and you can improve your life if you journal, writing things down. So if we were to objectively journal even just one day, let alone a week or a month, out of those 1,440 minutes that each one of us equally has, this is where there's complete equality across the board, our age, sex, nationality, social status, whatever it might be, we all have exactly the same, equal amounts of this 1,440 minutes in every single day. If you were to journal, being honest, out of that 1,440 minutes, how many minutes can you actually say you are joyful and fully happy? I'm not talking about, I'm not feeling too bad. If someone asks you, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing okay. I don't mean that stuff. I mean when you are truly joyful, truly happy, and not longing or wanting or desiring anything. That you are fully satisfied within yourself, joyful. I don't mean artificially. I don't mean positive thinking. Oh yeah, how are you? Oh, I'm great. Doing really well. I don't mean that stuff, right? I mean actually, truthfully, deeply, profoundly, that you are actually joyful. But anyone hazard a guess? No positive thinkers allowed, because they lie, even to themselves. I remember there was this one really nice gentleman who was coming around to our kirtans and things for a number of years. And sometimes we speak about the topics of loneliness. We speak about topics of death, of unhappiness, the problems, the miseries of life. And he said it was too negative for him. So he decided not to come. And now we run into each other regularly, going for walks and things. And he has a really good set of Bose earphones on thing. And he's just listening to positive thinking tapes. Just constantly reinforcing, constantly positive thinking. Back in, actually it was in my dad's day, and I only kind of know about it because of my dad. There used to be this, I forget who it was, Dale Carnegie or someone like that. And when you get up every day, and my dad tried this for a while, and every day when you get up, you go into the bathroom and you look in the mirror and you say, what do you say? No old people here. No one's even heard of Dale Carnegie, have you? I think he had a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, something like that. So what you're meant to say is, you look at yourself in the mirror, yourself, your body, which is not yourself, and you go, every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. And this was your affirmation for the day, right? Well, I look in the mirror and go, God, every day, in every way, you're getting older and older. Every day, in every way, there are more wrinkles, there's more grey hair, and you're not the youth looking back at you as they used to be. So this is called realistic thinking. And in the yoga teaching, in fact, it goes so far, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita goes so far as to say very directly, from the highest planetary system to the lowest planetary system, and all the planetary systems in between, which is Earth is considered in between these different planetary systems, all are places of misery where repeated birth and death take place. How does that grab you for some positive thinking? So he's the supreme authority. Krishna himself is saying, from the highest planetary system to the lowest, all are places of misery where repeated birth and death take place. How about that? Isn't that pretty cool? Now for some reason, we don't like to hear that. For some reason, we feel a little disturbed by that. Is that not true? You can be honest here, we're all friends. Why? Why does that disturb us? And if you look at it objectively, is it not true? Is it not true? It is true. So this study that I saw it probably wasn't the unhappiness study. It was probably the happiness research. Anyway, they have them every year for about the last 25 years or something. And unhappiness, there is a pandemic, an epidemic of unhappiness in the world. And apparently it peaks at 45.7 years. The time in someone's life when they are at the most unhappy. Worldwide, 170 countries or whatever it was are part of this research survey thing. So those of you who are 47.5 years, you've got a good 2 months left before you find your peak of unhappiness. You can only joke about this when you have a solution. Otherwise it does seem a bummer and it does seem pessimistic. So there was a couple of things I got from the article that I thought I could share. Loneliness. How about that for a topic? Loneliness. Public health experts tell us loneliness is killing as many people as obesity and smoking put together. Loneliness is killing as many people as smoking and obesity put together. Germans are lonely. The French are lonely. The Scandinavians, who are apparently higher up on the list in the happiness survey, are lonely. The Scandinavians, apparently the happiest people in the world, according to the UN World Happiness Report, are lonely. One of the previous Prime Ministers of England, Theresa May, appointed a minister for loneliness. A minister for loneliness to help people overcome loneliness. And part of this article was saying this loneliness and this unhappiness is increasing decade by decade, going back to the 1910s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, just up to now. Loneliness and unhappiness are increasing, not decreasing, which is kind of strange when you think about it, because we have much more facility for material enjoyment than we have ever had. poverty, the relative rate of poverty worldwide is just not anywhere near it used to be. More people are above the poverty line than ever before in the history of humankind. And so part of this article said, though people have more money, better health care, better health, better housing and more education, and live longer than any other time in history, they, especially young people, are unhappier than at any time since data collection began. How about that? If you look around the world, we look around Australia, which is like heaven. Australia is one of the most opulent countries in the world. And yet we still, I won't go through all the statistics, but the symptoms of this lifestyle bringing us joy, fulfillment, happiness is not there. So we are meant to ask the question and understand why. And if we look at our own life, as I started with, out of the 144 minutes in a day, how many of those minutes are you factually joyful? Factually. Not, hoping for something good to happen or just so drunk or drugged that you don't know whether you're happy or unhappy, but you're actually factually happy. It would be lucky to be 1%. That would be a good day if it's 1% of that 144 minutes. So I was also reading, there was this philosopher that I used to be into years ago when I was an atheist. His name was Bertrand Russell. He was a very highly intelligent philosopher and caring personality. And he said this, "My purpose is to suggest a cure for the ordinary day-to-day unhappiness from which most people in civilized countries suffer, and which is all the more unbearable because, having no obvious external cause, it appears inescapable." No obvious external cause, this unhappiness. Because once we have enough to eat, we have somewhere to live, we have friends, we have family, according to a certain worldview, we should be happy. We should be satisfied. But this is not the case. So yoga actually encourages us to ask the question, why? Not just to go through life on the surface. The opportunity of this human life is to actually ask that question. Why am I suffering? I do not desire to suffer, even a sore toe, let alone something worse. So we are meant to actually ask that question. Why am I suffering? Why is there suffering? And in that way, we can seek a solution. We can actually find where is actual happiness, satisfaction to be found. So according from the vision of eternity, which is the vision of spiritual life, it is actually sometimes we can understand that a certain amount of suffering is good. A certain amount of pain is good. It is a good thing to suffer. What do you think? Not many people are nodding their head, because most of us, we don't want to suffer. But how can suffering be something good? It's actually not that hard to understand if you think about it a little bit, because it motivates me to find a solution. If I'm just drugged out on positive thinking and I don't want to see any of the suffering, it means I'm not going to search for a solution and find where real happiness is to be found. This understanding is in every single spiritual tradition since time immemorial. Every single tradition speaks to this idea. So let us not just be enamored and swept away by the superficial nature of our modern society and what's put forward by the influencers, as they say, and see a little deeper into existence. In the same way that, let's say someone is getting bad headaches, really like excruciating headaches, and maybe insomnia and different things like that. Now, they have a couple of options. One is that they can just go positive thinking route. Every day in every way I'm feeling better and better. I do not have headaches. I feel joyful. I feel happy. I feel contented. I am full. I am perfect just as I am. Right? Have you ever tried any of those affirmations? I bet some of you have. So this headache, which is there every day and every night, they positive think it away. What do you think? Good idea? Not a good idea. Go to the doctor. Go to your healthcare practitioner and ask. And they will say, look, let's do some tests. Let's get some scans. Let's do some bloods. And then whereas if, they could have the tests and the test results come back and, the person's in the doctor's surgery and they're going, yep, no problems. No, it's all good. Just think positive and you'll be all right. Whereas in fact there's a tumour. The scans show the person has a cancer, has a tumour. So therefore the symptoms and them acting on those symptoms of the headache was actually brought them to a place of investigating why am I getting these headaches and is there a solution. So now there is the possibility of overcoming, the cancer, the brain cancer, because they didn't just wash away those symptoms and they sought out a solution. Is that understandable? So pain has a purpose if we see it for what it is and then we investigate, so to speak. So all of these symptoms of loneliness, these are symptoms. They are not a disease. Depression is not a disease. Anxiety is not a disease. These are symptoms of something underlying. Loneliness, where they have a minister of loneliness. It's so everywhere. And in our own life, we know the emptiness and the loneliness that can be there. Even in a really solid relationships, we still experience these things. These are not diseases. These are symptoms of an underlying problem. And it is ultimately a spiritual problem. They are symptoms of a deeper inner spiritual problem. So let us not put our headphones on and just, I am good, I'm getting better every day, I'm perfect and there's nothing wrong with me. And meanwhile, time is going along and looking in the mirror and the sweet bird of youth has flown the coop. This is another symptom, is the aging of the body. This is another good thing. You start to, when you see the aging, you see the first wrinkle or you see the first grey hair. That obviously happened some time ago, the first grey hair. It's meant to be, it's meant to help you go, gee, what's this about? So I can either put dye in and cover it over and pretend it's not happening for a while. I remember years ago, it's years ago now, I started getting the first what's known as a liver spot. Does anyone know what a liver spot is? Or an age spot, they call it. So I Googled, getting rid of age spots. Well, I only had 2 or something, Okay, lemon juice, I think, was one of them, and there are a couple of other things you can do, apparently. I go, there's no harm. I'm not vain. So then all of a sudden there was 3, 4... now the whole hand's more liver spot than there is hand, so it's kind of like I'll give up on that one. Right, that one's too late on that one, So these are all like symptoms and, okay, all right, inescapable, the body is aging. Inescapable. So anyway, as you could tell, we could talk forever on this. But what, of course, this idea, let me see how far can we go. No, we don't want to take up too much time because kirtan is what tonight is all about. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this: for one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. So there's threefold miseries that's spoken about in this yoga text of the Bhagavad Gita, are the miseries caused by one's own body and mind. Our body is a source of suffering. That is why there are so many hospitals. That is why there are so many doctors, and how hard it is to get an appointment at a doctor because every body is there. Right? And then there's things like cosmetic surgery places and getting rid of age spots, clinics and all kind of things. So the material, and even just sitting here for a little while, right? My back's hurting a bit because I overdid it at the gym. So it's a little bit painful just sitting here like this. I want to do a bit of yoga and kind of move a bit. So the body is causing different degrees of some misery at all times, from stomach upsets to toothaches, arthritis, headaches, all different kind of things. There's such a whole variety of different miseries that the material body causes. What to speak of the mind, which is even a greater cause of misery than even the body. The mind, as we've said many times, the mind can make a hell out of heaven and a heaven out of hell. Everything can be going great in life and the mind will find something to freak out about and to worry about. Mental health is a bigger problem, or is as big a problem as physical health, right? So one of the threefold miseries is miseries caused by one's body and one's mind. What other of these threefold miseries are there? Miseries caused by other living beings. One's parents, one's children, one's partner, others on the road, ants, mosquitoes, flies, endless. So other living beings cause us misery. And the third is natural disasters, which we have no control over. Too hot, too cold, tsunami, earthquake, mudslide, hurricane, on and on. So these are the three, what's described as the threefold miseries. For one who is so situated in divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So this is just one little hint, clear, direct, but just one example that actually where real happiness is to be found is in divine consciousness, in transcendental consciousness. And just to cut to the chase so we can get back to the kirtan, we should understand that it is not unnatural that we are suffering in this world. That is not unnatural. It is natural that we are suffering. What is unnatural is that we are in this world. That is what is unnatural. That we, the eternal spiritual being, are in the temporary material world. That is unnatural. In the same way that an aquatic animal, when it is on the land, it can find no real peace or happiness because it is not, a terrestrial being. It is an aquatic being. And when it is out of its natural environment, it must be miserable. In the same way as we are land-based animals, right, terrestrial beings, so to speak, when we find ourselves in the aquatic, if we find ourselves in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it is not our natural home, and we cannot be happy there. We can be happy short term, having a bit of a swim and a bit of a surf, right? Okay, now just imagine you've been swept out to the middle of the Pacific Ocean. How happy are you? And why do they send helicopters and ships and boats to look for you? Because you do not belong in the ocean. You are not an ocean person. You are not an aquatic. You are a land-based animal. So you cannot just go and live in the ocean and think you will be happy and there will be no miseries for you. You will get hypothermia, or whatever it is, hypothermia, depends what it is. Then there's no real food for you there. You've got no place of shelter there because it is not your home. You are not that kind of being. Similarly, we are the eternal spiritual being, part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. We are eternal and ever-existing. This material place is not our home. This is full of impermanence, temporariness, and it is not. We are not of this nature. We are not material. We are not temporary. We are not impermanent. So in the same way as the aquatic animal being cannot find happiness, whatever it does, when it is on the land, It needs to go back to its natural home. Is that easy to understand, right? So it's easy to understand why the fish is not happy when it's on the land. You don't need to do a deep study on why all the fishes who are on the land are miserable and unhappy. It's just freaking obvious that a fish is not going to be happy on the land. You don't need a deep university grant, and 20 years of study. Fish, mullet, number one. Always unhappy whether it lived in Scandinavia or Australia, right? There's an epidemic of unhappiness amongst mullets who live on the land. That's what this study's about. The yoga teaching can tell you very quickly, easily, the reason for the misery which people are experiencing, even when we have everything that we need materially, because we are not material. It's actually as simple as that. So spiritual life, the system of yoga, is to help us come back to our natural state. And our natural condition is Sat Chit Ananda. We are eternal, full of wisdom and blissful by nature. So this whole system, this yoga system, is actually a path of self-realization to bring us, the spiritual fish, back into our real nature, to our real home. And it is joyful. So one can live in the world and not be of the world. And again, just to finish off on the idea of, in the yoga teaching, you many times see a lotus flower as a symbol for meditation and yoga through all cultures. Why is that? It's because the lotus flower can live in very dirty, polluted places, but be untouched by the pollution because it is above, right? So a lotus flower has a long stem. So although it's in the polluted water, it is above and untouched by the pollution. Is that understandable? So similarly, through meditation, through spiritual cultivation, we can live in this world, which is not our natural home, but simultaneously be experiencing the joy, the ananda, the bliss, which is our real nature, because we are in touch with the eternal, with the spiritual, with the supreme. Now, according to the yoga text, the easiest way to achieve that, the easiest way that everybody can practice, is what we are doing tonight. The hearing and chanting and the meditation upon transcendental sound. So because I've spoken too long now, I'm not going to go into the details of that, but this is the joyful, simple, sublime way in which every single one of us can actually come to that transcendent place and find that joy, that peace, that happiness which is there within us. So do not be surprised if you go through life and are sometimes miserable. It is meant to be. But you have a place of joy, of happiness, of satisfaction. It doesn't cost you anything. And every single one of us can actually access that place. It is very simple to do. Thank you very much.